Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Let's check in and see how Ukraine is doing. Ukraine situation reports. Kyiv tries to lower expectations for its counteroffensive. Ukrainian officials say they are facing a tough fight despite high expectations, but the big blow is still yet to come. So the Russians, for the last 6 months, have been doing everything to elevate the expectations for Ukraine's counteroffensive as high as possible, meanwhile lower their own expectations as low as possible. And Ukraine still is making progress, liberating a new village every day or so, but President Zelensky addressed the nation and stated the obvious. The counteroffensive is moving slower than desired. And the reason why is because this is not a movie. Here's President Zelensky's address. It's 3.5 minutes. I'll link it in the pinned comment down below if you want to check it out. But what he says is, this is not a movie. This is not a video game. These are the lives of Ukrainian soldiers, and the government of Ukraine, the Ukrainian military, cares about the lives of all of their people. So they are going to proceed as slowly and cautiously as possible to save civilian lives, to save the lives of their soldiers. Russia has the advantage in that Putin and the Russian military, they don't care if civilians die. They don't care if their own soldiers die. The only thing they care about is taking this territory. And if you want to talk about numbers, by my math, Ukraine has liberated 125 square kilometers since June 4th. If you want to go by a unit refuseniks are more comfortable with, Bakhmut is 43.5 square kilometers. So Ukraine, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, has liberated 2.9 Bakhmuts worth of territory. It took the Russians 10 or 11 months of direct assaults to finally capture this city. So Ukraine is making progress, and we are going to talk about the map. But before we do that, I want to welcome back a long-term sponsor of this channel. The sponsor of today's video is Surfshark VPN, and Surfshark VPN is an app and browser extension that encrypts all of your data while online to add an extra layer of protection to keep your personal information safe from hackers and trackers. Aside from its military-grade encryption, why is Surfshark the best VPN on the market? And it's because it's the only VPN that allows installation on an unlimited number of devices, all on one account for one price. Surfshark can be great for sending and receiving files securely online or finding great shopping deals. But something I like about Surfshark is when using various streaming services such as Netflix. It allows me to unlock different content in other countries. For example, here in the United States on Netflix, they don't have any of the old Star Trek TV shows. I grew up in the 90s watching these shows. They're fun to occasionally rewatch. I think currently they're exclusive on Paramount Plus, and I don't want to pay for Paramount Plus right now. So what I can do is I can pull up Surfshark and change my country location to, for example, Australia. Then all I have to do is refresh the page and boom, I can watch all the old Star Trek TV shows again. Likewise, I can change my country location to other countries around the world to unlock fantastic TV shows and movies to watch. There is no risk in trying Surfshark VPN as they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Use the promo code jakebroeyt and sign up today for an exclusive deal and get an extra 3 months for free. Thank you again to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video. And here's the attitude of the average Ukrainian. Beyond the counteroffensive, 84% of Ukrainians are ready for a long war. And I want to share this post from Anton. I've been sharing lots of Anton's translations and videos here on the channel, and this is what he said yesterday. This is the second summer of the full-scale war. Last summer we had hoped the war would finish sooner. This summer we understand the war might last a long time. So we learn to stretch our energy, we adjust to being professional volunteers, professional weapon producers, support our armed forces however we can. We adjust to living and keeping our families intact within the war. We learn to care for our mental health. We learn to restore energy and see signs of burnout in others and ourselves. It's hard. There's so few of us compared to Russia, but we are motivated and can't settle for anything but victory. Thank you for being with us as we run our marathon. I'm not going anywhere, guys. I've been posting these update videos for almost a year and a half now. I will continue doing it for another year and a half, another 2 years, another 3 years, until Russia is defeated and Ukraine is safe and secure. So this is what Russia wants. They want despair, they want depression, they want people to feel like they need to give up. They want everyone in the West to either lose interest or lose hope. They want Ukrainians to just surrender and give them concessions. And I want to read for you this comment left on my channel a year ago in response to the video, "The War Map in Ukraine Does Not Matter." This is what Jason says. "It's over. Redraw the map. Russia has a land bridge to Crimea. Despite floundering in other areas, they took and held this land bridge from the beginning. Russia can send Mongolians to fight its war, while Ukraine will run out of fighters. They won't take back Donbass or Crimea, spare Odessa, and make peace, including no NATO." This comment is from a year ago. If the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian military, and people living in the West listened to these Russian bots, these Russian trolls, then Izium would still be under Russian occupation, Liman, Kupiansk, the city of Kherson. In the last year, Ukraine has liberated thousands of square kilometers of their territory. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people have been saved from Russian occupation. A year ago, this guy was claiming Odessa was going to be the next city to be captured, when in reality, Russia has been stuck in reverse for an entire year. Yes, it would have been great if this counteroffensive went like the Kharkiv counteroffensive, Russian lines collapsing and they all retreating backwards. Also would have been great if it was like the city of Kherson and Russians just abandon it because their logistical supply lines couldn't support them. But when it comes to Zaporizhia, they've had a year to mine all the fields and build fortifications. In addition, Russia is using barrier troops. They're shooting their own soldiers who try to retreat. So the Russians are dug in, and they're fighting. But a serious advantage that Ukraine has is that Russia's leadership is clueless. They're incompetent and clueless. So here's a clip I want to share with you of President Putin talking about Ukrainian losses from the last couple days. Listen to this.
Сейчас на сегодняшний день 186 танков потеряно украинской армии и 186, по-моему, да. 186 и 418 бронемашин различного класса.
2 hours later.
По числу, по количеству 218 танков, и из них и леопарды, там 400.
So on stage at this forum, Putin initially says Ukraine has lost 186 tanks. On the same stage, 2 hours later, he then says Ukraine has lost 218 tanks, as well as 418 armored vehicles in the last couple days. There's no possible way that Ukraine has lost 700 armored vehicles in the last couple days. Russia is just making up numbers. They're showing these reports to Putin every day. Putin chooses to believe it and repeat it to his people, but it's nonsense. If you want the truth of what is happening, I have to share a clip with you of Girkin. I haven't shown a clip of Girkin in a while. He's been pretty depressed about how the war is going for Russia. But Girkin is a former FSB agent who was instrumental in the annexation of Crimea. He's been involved in the wars in the Donbass region the last 8 years. He's an internationally wanted criminal by The Hague. And this is what Girkin had to say yesterday. Our commander-in-chief is not going to win this war at all. Whatever victories our army achieves in this war, we are going to lose it with such an approach of the country's current leadership. A year ago, the enemy attacked nowhere. The initiative belonged entirely to the Russian armed forces. What do we see now? In June 2023, Kherson is abandoned. Izium is abandoned. Kupiansk is abandoned. The president voices the figures of 140 to 180 tanks destroyed in a few days. They bring him the data, and he doesn't understand what he's saying. Tell me, why should he understand it? He may well believe it. If he had been handed 1,800 tanks, he could say that too. He's never seen a tank except at a parade. What's wrong with his head? He's really acting maybe not even like an old man, but like a child. Totally unprofessional. The uneducated cadres in the highest ranks of the Russian Federation, we have no chance to win. This is the message that Girkin has for his Russian supporters. Girkin, one of the biggest advocates for invading Ukraine a year and a half ago, declaring to his followers, Russia has no chance of winning this war. So it's a war of attrition, and Ukraine is going to continue hammering Russia's logistic and supply lines. The next target appears to be this bridge connecting Crimea to the city of Melitopol. There's no other weapon system, I think, that could have hit this other than a Storm Shadow cruise missile. The Russians were kind enough to release a video showing exactly what the damage looks like. So I guess in the next couple nights, once we get satellite updates, Ukraine's going to hit it with another Storm Shadow, trying to bring down this bridge. But I'm getting flashbacks of the Antonovsky Bridge outside of Kherson. And here is an interesting satellite image showing the before and after as the Kakhovka Reservoir entirely drains. Here is what the satellite of the reservoir looked like 2 weeks ago, and this is what it looks like today. And I want to bounce an idea off you guys. But first, just look at what the lake bed currently looks like. Here's a local resident filming a video.
Так виглядає водосховище на правому березі від Енергодару. Води немає взагалі.
So the lake bed is drying out, and it's not mined. There's no trenches, there's no defensive fortifications. It almost looks dry enough where you could easily drive armored vehicles across this dirt and sand. So here's my crazy idea. There are 6 dams on the Dnieper River. 2 weeks ago, Russia destroyed the 6th one. But what if Ukraine deliberately used the other 5 to stop the flow of water down the Dnieper River, so no water flows to the Black Sea? They could only do this for a limited amount of time, maybe a couple weeks, as they raise the water level in all of these reservoirs to completely stop the flow of water. This would turn everything basically into a dry desert. And this would be dry enough with no flowing water for Ukrainians to cross. Civilians could get to the north if they want to flee the occupied territories. This could open up some interesting opportunities for the Ukrainian military to get to the other side of the river. Yes, this would be temporary. Eventually, the flow of water would have to resume down these dams. But if Ukraine wanted to get creative, this area of the map is not heavily fortified. It's not heavily mined. Russia has been moving soldiers from Kherson to Zaporizhia. Just an idea, tossing it out there if anyone knows anything. The next clip I'm going to share in the pinned comment down below, once again from Dimitri over at War Translated, and it's from Astra. Astra publishes the first video from an illegal basement for Russian refuseniks in the Luhansk region. This camp is to hold Russian soldiers who refuse to fight, and initially this camp was dispersed, but it looks like it's being used again. It's kind of a disturbing video. I'm not going to play it. It's 2 minutes long, but I will share with you Chris O's assessment of the video. Since at least as early as November of last year, there have been persistent reports of a refuseniks being imprisoned and tortured in the basement of the House of Culture in this village in the Luhansk region. The video shows dozens of men imprisoned in near darkness, illuminated only by a single light bulb and a hand light. They lie on the floor or sit in fixed chairs, likely brought down from the House of Culture's upper floors. The narrator in the video explains with sarcasm the conditions that they live in, and the narrator is vague about the exact number of men in the facility. It's not a court of law, as he notes. Here, everything is absolutely in the wind. He is likely referring to men periodically being taken out and tortured by the FSB in the upper floors of the building. So for Russian soldiers conscripted and mobilized and sent to Ukraine, if they refuse to fight, they're sent to these central locations to be tortured by the FSB until they're willing to fight again. Russian army commanders are reportedly demanding large bribes from their men to let them go on leave or keep them out of the front line. It illustrates the depth of corruption in the Russian army and the exploitive relationship that many officers have towards their men. These reports are ubiquitous that if you want a certain assignment, or you want out of military service, or you want to take leave, you have to bribe your commanding officer. So all the men on the zero line in Ukraine are very impoverished. They don't have money that their family can send them for them to bribe their commanding officer to be moved to the second or third line of defense. And yeah, Russia doesn't want any of their soldiers going on leave because then they don't return. The Russian army is having an increasing problem with desertions, according to a leaked document which appears to show hundreds of men deserting from the airborne forces since February of last year. Here's an interesting story. Divorce your wife to avoid conscription. Intercepted phone call reveals Russian draft dodging scheme. So how does this work? Here's what the intercepted phone call captured. You know what you need to do if your wife will sign up for it, says the serving man. I'll tell you in a nutshell. I've been told that before, the other replies. Divorce my wife and keep the baby. Russian conscription laws allow exemption from serving in the armed forces for a man who is the sole guardian or custodian of a minor. So if you're married with kids, just divorce your wife is in on it, and then become the sole legal guardian for those children, and you can avoid conscription and mobilization. Russia, the land of family values, 100%. Russia moves to allow convicts to join the army. Russian lawmakers have approved legislation allowing convicts to clear their criminal records in exchange for joining the country's depleted military nearly 16 months into Russia's war on Ukraine. If signed into law, Putin's going to sign it, the legislation would expunge the criminal records of those who join the armed forces once they complete their battlefield service or receive a state award for being wounded. I don't think that's a good deal. I don't think many ex-cons are going to be signing up for the military. Final story we have to talk about is very distressing. I know a lot of you are worried about this situation. Here is Ukraine's Ministry of Defense posting the story on their main page, sounding the alarm that Russia is in fact planning to destroy the Zaporizhia nuclear power plants. Intelligence Chief Budanov put out a video. Let me read for you what he says. In truth, a certain threat exists. Let me repeat it again. A certain threat exists because the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant has been and still is under the control of the occupying army. The truth is that by destroying the dam, they ruined the normal flow of water to the cooling system of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. This is the first, but the second and scarier is that during this time, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant was additionally mined. And what is the scariest is that the cooling system in particular was the area that the Russians mined. If they disable it by exploding it, let's say there will be a big possibility that there will be significant problems. President Zelensky also filmed a video this morning talking about the intelligence reports that the Ukrainians have got that Russia has specifically mined the nuclear power plant, targeting the cooling systems. Okay, so here's the map. And you might be asking the question, why would Russia do this? And I do believe that 2 weeks ago, Russia blew up the dam kind of as a test run to see what would the rest of the world do. What would be the response from NATO and the West? What would be the response from the other nuclear powers, such as India and China? And I think the world failed. I don't think there was a strong response at all. So Russia might be feeling emboldened. They might think, well, we can just destroy the nuclear power plant, say Ukraine did it, and then retreat our forces. Russia has already built the defense lines in Crimea, made the preparations for completely giving up on holding the Kherson and the Zaporizhia oblasts. So by blowing the nuclear power plants on their way out, essentially they'd be making this area a dead zone, a no-go zone. The city of Zaporizhia, here's the problem. The city of Zaporizhia is over 700,000 people. This would be in the new exclusion zone, and all of these people would have to evacuate. Evacuating a city of 700,000 people would drain the resources of the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian military. Russia is just trying to buy time. They're trying to slow down the Ukrainian military as best they can because they're trying to rebuild or equip new soldiers or hope that elections change political winds in Western countries. Additionally, it's scorched earth. If Russia can't have this territory, they're just going to declare that nobody can have it. And this is absurd because look at this circle. This is the contaminated territory, pretty much the entirety of Ukraine. Millions of refugees, pretty much every mother and child would be trying to get out of Ukraine into Western countries. Russia's goal and objective, once again, put political pressure by weaponizing refugees into governments giving Russia concessions. Russia doesn't care if radiation spills over to Russian territory. They don't care if their own people die. But you'll notice that NATO countries, Bulgaria, Romania, and Turkey, would be hit with radioactive debris, a significant amount. So I do think that NATO countries have to make strong statements. I would like to see statements from President Biden and Scholz, Macron, Sunak that if Russia blows up this nuclear power plant, NATO has to go to war. A limited version of the war with only strikes in the occupied territories in Crimea. They could make it conditional to prevent further escalation, but purposely destroying this nuclear power plant is a weapon of war. And if Russia can do this, and then India and China don't respond with sanctions on Russia, then I think Russia will view that as the green light to just start using tactical nukes. Russia's losing this war. They're desperate. They want to use their nuclear weapons, but they don't want NATO to get involved, and they don't want India and China to participate in economic sanctions. So this is a dry run. It's an act of desperation, but there's a serious chance this could happen in the coming weeks. On that note, let's get to the good news for Ukraine. The United States has announced a $1.3 billion aid package. This is not directly military assistance. $520 million will go to help Ukraine repair its energy network, $657 million to help modernize border crossing points, railway lines, ports, and other critical infrastructure. This is military aid. Ukraine's military cannot operate without all of this other stuff functioning, which is why the United States is putting a priority with this $1.3 billion assistance package. France is now publicly saying it will support Ukraine's accession to NATO in a sped-up process. Various NATO member states are publicly declaring that they will ease the requirements for Ukraine to join NATO as part of a way to end this war. It'll be done through negotiations with Russia once Russia is defeated. Latvia will soon transfer all of its combat helicopters to Ukraine. Thank you so much, Latvia. Portugal announced another military aid package, including 14 of these M113 armored vehicles, as well as a battery of 105mm howitzers. Thank you so much, Portugal. You guys have been incredible. Final couple feel-good clips I got for you guys. The first one is from the Superhuman Center, and this is an organization that works with disabled Ukrainian veterans being fitted with prosthetics, and I just want to share the progress from this one Ukrainian veteran.
Розслабтесь.
Well done. Final clip I have for you is a frontline volunteer rescuing a litter of kittens from Russian shelling. Everyone is doing their best. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.